think we're going to just take a look, broadly speaking, at each of the teams,
Yeah.
and have a little review of how their championship has gone. And we're going to start with, of course, the champions,
which would be Wales.
It would, of course. I have to let you do the accent when we're introing Wales.
Yes,
you have
of course. I'm sure some people appreciate it.
I'm sure some might be annoyed
Some
by
might be annoyed by it too, but then, yeah, sure, at least we're not calling them lucky.
No,
you know?
yeah, like everybody else. They certainly weren't lucky, as I say.
Well, they had their good moments of good fortune, but they made them count, which is the difference.
No, in terms of lucky champions, the idea of that is just like when there's 5 teams that are within a whisker of each other. The difference making is the side that's, and I think it's a brilliant point of difference for the side that's the most clinical and the most sharp and the most try-seeking to be the one that separates themselves from the others, and that's very much for me the story of Wales this year.
And therefore the story of the tournament as well. Like it's a credit to Pivac. He really, like this, the foundations were there last year. Like you think that try that they scored against England last year, albeit in a losing effort, where it was just the very first play of the second half, off kick-off, one phase under the sticks, with lovely Tompkins pass out and Tipperick going trotting up.
Gareth Davis got the dot down?
No, I think it was Tipperick got the dot down.
Okay.
But it was a lovely transitional score, and they were a little loose all through last year, and then it was a very doom and gloom because it was a very bad last year ultimately in terms of results. But Pivac with Scarlets, we saw the kind of how he wants a team playing, and he got Scarlets as high as they'd pretty much ever been in terms of European campaigns. And now with Wales, like it's a style of rugby that really does suit them, because even when you think of how Dragons play or how Cardiff play, there's a lot of good catch pass even in kind of loose packs and losing packs a lot of the time. When a break is on, they're very good at spotting opportunities and sniffing out space and attacking it. And having a Wales team that are a bit more devoted to that concept than they probably were under Gatland. They were a bit more regimented, very defensive minded.
Certainly towards the end it was very much about, like, that World Cup drive was very much built on Sean Edwards' defence, and there are definitely points to improve from that point of view. I don't think their defence was perfect. I think in moments against Ireland and against Scotland they found themselves overwhelmed by power.
Yes, they did.
Struggling to contain big carriers like Hamish Watson running through them, like Tig Furlong and co. Well, Furlong wasn't playing that game, but even Porter in that game, and James Ryan,
the other Tig, Tig Byrne I think was there, and actually Will Connors, another blue scrum cap, was everywhere that game.
The Ireland carried really, really well, and Henshaw even, but they found themselves busted, slipping tackles and being moved backwards and not being able to contain it. And in moments against England you saw that as well, and so there's definitely points of improvement on the defence. It needs to generate that more aggressive, turnover heavy threat that old school Wales defence has had. It could certainly be better. And of course they'll have regrets. They were within whisker of Grand Slam.
That's right.
And it's going to colour, looking back on this championship success, perhaps more than anything for the Welsh fans, was how it was such a nearly Grand Slam. And just a few moments, I think, as we said last week, in that French game where they mismanaged it a little bit, and they didn't back their offence right when they needed to.
When Louis Rees-Zammit nearly got that try that was just disallowed, and then they elected to kick the 3 off it, even though they had their foot on the neck, and it would have been a game-killing score. They didn't choose to go for it. They kicked the 3 for 30 points clear instead.
Thought they were safe.
And they weren't, and they didn't get another offensive drive. They brought in Callum Sheedy, who's a more offensively minded 10, and they didn't have any offense to run, so they were just defending, and it was all of these things, just slight mismanagement of things, and then just kind of receding into themselves a little bit at the death, which is a shame.
Of the game, what should have been the last play of the game, when they had the ball and they almost Doolan-esque just kept it when the ref is going to pin you for going off your feet, and then they do, of course, and they are pinned. And they should have kicked that ball, and they possibly would have been in a much better position if they had. But
that's all ifs, ands, or buts.
It probably colours the championship fairly in my mind. They probably weren't quite good enough in terms of the roundedness of their game. They weren't quite good enough to take the slam, although they were so close. But they have now some things to build on. Now some areas to improve, and if they can improve their offense, if they can sharpen that up even more, and become even more ruthless.
There's potential for it, because they only landed on that new centre partnering that I think looks very well balanced and potentially a very good one going forward, possibly to the World Cup, of Davies and North. Very experienced operators, and one who's formerly a wide, out in the wide channels, but now linking with their dangerous men. And like, there's a lot more balance. They did grow into it as the tournament went on as well. Certainly momentum, as we were saying, all tournament long, plays such a huge part for any team, but Wales more so than most are really good at harnessing it and capturing it and moving on, building a campaign. They do that really, really well. They did it well in the World Cup. They pushed the eventual world champions very close in 2019, and now in this again, once they got a head of steam up, they were nearly an unstoppable force until the very, very end. And like, if they'd managed that last quarter again, I have no doubt they probably would have had a little bit more quality in terms of quality and experience than this French team. But it's ifs, ands or buts that it didn't come to be. They
lost that game, but they did prove themselves a better side than France over the course of the tournament, and just as we stand right now, the best side in the tournament, and for sure deserving champions in the tournament itself. Just before we move on from Wales, a couple of things that we're going to look out for each team. What was Wales's best try of the tournament? What was their number one?
Jeez, they had a lot to pick from.
They did, didn't they?
It's a bit of a smorgasbord. Well, yeah, I think technically the best one is Louis Rees-Zammit versus Scotland. I think that's a lovely transitional kind of score with a lovely finish from their in-form young winger, which was definitely what the first half of this Six Nations, or the first stanza, was definitely about. Louis Rees-Zammit lighting it up and finding tries, and that one was an absolute peach.
Yeah, the one, Adam Beard's little distribution in the midfield when they were running that wide screen just to get on the outside of them and give Rees-Zammit the whisker of space, so he chips the ball over and then finds the try, which kills the game against Scotland after Scotland had retaken the lead. Yeah, it would be absolutely a worthy winner.
It is.
They had some other gems, of course. Some of Rees-Zammit's one against Ireland was a fine try. I thought their footballing try that they scored against the French with Tipperic's, just for the Tipperick assist, the little kick, the rolled kick, which is like weighted like a classy football pass from a world-class midfielder like Andrea Pirlo or something. It was like he just drops it on his toe. I don't know what kind of spin he gets on it, but to have it just roll and check right at the perfect moment for Josh Adams chasing it up,
just in case you needed a reminder that Tipperick's an absolute baller.
Exactly. It was such a lovely touch from Tipperick, and then Josh Adams finishes it like a footballer as well, gets his football boot. I think that one would be more in contention if it wasn't as contentious, because at the very end of it, Ollie Vaughan nearly holds it up, and I think you could argue on the footage did hold it up, so it's hard to give it the dub, because it was maybe not a try.
Maybe the other Josh Adams try, the one against England. Tap and go. No, a less contentious one from England, the Kieran Hardy score. I enjoyed that. Former halfback myself, I love seeing a clever little halfback make a mug of a very slow and sluggish English team, which it's not a pretty score. It's not their try of the tournament, but it was one of my favourites.
No, it was good. It was how they won that game in many ways, by being the sharper team. So for sure, lots to choose from for Wales, but I think the winner is Louis Rees-Zammit against Scotland.
I think so too.
I think their best moment of the tournament is possibly that match sealing try against England, where they just pushed it out to 40 points. I just thought that was
crashing over.
That was when it all became real. It all became vindicated after the 2 red cards in the opening 2 weeks. I think just seeing it off, and I know they've had a couple of contentious tries in the game, but putting that stamp on it and being like, oh no, we're here, we took another try and we won the game by 16 points.
Bonus point time. We're putting 40 points on England in for the first time in Wales's history as well. That's a pretty momentous moment for any Welsh fan. I'm sure they enjoyed that one.
It was Corey Hill got the score, but you could feel the outpouring of them and the real belief, and I think that was the moment where I think it became undeniable as the best team of the tournament. Congratulations to Wales, I would say.
I would say so too. Just in terms of one last thing, player of the tournament
for Wales.
Very difficult thing to narrow down. I guess they had a lot of guys put their hand up. I really enjoyed Adam Beard throughout. I thought like he didn't actually play all the games. He was rotated out in the middle somewhere, and he didn't play the Italy game. But anytime he was in there, he was so pivotal to their offence. He was getting very, very good touches in the wide channels.
Wyn Jones, Fred Loosehead, who everyone's sort of, he's become undeniable. He sort of sprung to people's attention by being top of the stat sheet, but then you like watch the games back and he was just everywhere. He was always the guy who was making the big carries. He was the guy who was busting tackles. He was then the guy who was making tackles and turnovers. He was just everywhere for a Loosehead. Absolute turbo engine on him.
Yeah.
And made plays pretty much throughout the tournament and played most of every game. Was all over.
It was very wily. It was his showing. I thought he was very clever both at scrum time and in the loose. I thought he acquitted himself, with a lot of intellect as well as a lot of kind of dynamism and power.
Likewise, the back row, Tipuric, Faletau, both really good. Probably just thematically in terms of how they've won the tournament, you could probably give it to Rees-Zammit just for being ruthless. Maybe if he hadn't had that, just missed that try in France, that's probably extremely harsh to take that against him. George North at 13 was just going to say, I thought he was really good. I think that change could be a very good permanent one. He's only 28 now. He could have a very much a leadership role in this team going into the next World Cup from 13. Again, like with all of them, the defence needs a little bit of improvement, but only a little. He actually defended quite well.
He tackles ferociously. Both of those centres tackle ferociously, and then it's just the way they get the offence moving was very, very impressive. So I think probably either Louis Rees-Zammit or someone like North, someone from the back line. It kind of has to be. I think it probably is Louis Rees-Zammit.
Classy winger.
That's what it was all about. They found key scores at key moments and set themselves apart that way. So
I think that's likely fair enough. He had 4 tries in the year. He was just pipped by Doohan in the last game for top try scorer, but took his tries very well, played very well around the pitch. I think that's a fair call, Louis Rees-Zammit, for Wales' player of the tournament. But overall, congratulations to Wales on a fantastic Six Nations. I think they're in a great place going forward. Some things to work on. If they slip up, if they recede a little bit, if they don't spring on from here, they could, as England have, found themselves falling right back down.
That's true.
There's every reason to be on their toes going forward, and they have some difficult games. They'll have some difficult games coming up in November, and of course are a highly competitive Six Nations next year. But for the time being, they are the best team and the classiest team and the most ruthless team in the Six Nations. And congratulations to them. Good
value for their win, and as you say, still with a fair bit to build on and learn going forward. So a very healthy place for Wales and for Pivac in terms of just going forward. So thorough congratulations to the Six Nations champions.
100%.
Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.